Sometimes life is yikes.
And that's okay. You're not alone. Welcome to Yikesland.
Hi, guys, and welcome to Yikesland, episode 29.
What's up?
I don't know. That was supposed to be like the basketball noise, but it wasn't good at all. So I'll never do that again. My apologies. We are happy that you guys are here with us today on another great Tuesday. I would normally say, why is it a great Tuesday, Jelani? But he has water in his mouth. So it's a great Tuesday because you guys are here with us. You have made it to another Tuesday. Whether you are watching or listening or you're just out there in the ether and I'm talking to the concept of you, we're happy that you are here in Yikesland with us. We would love to hear from you guys on Twitter or Facebook. You can find our Instagram at Yikesland_podcast or email us at yikesland@gmail.com. Let us know your Tuesday victories or follies, a word that people don't use anymore.
I'm going to use it in conversation.
You're like, my mistake.
Often
I've been
now.
using it this whole time. But we would love to hear from you guys or new topic ideas or feedback on old topic ideas. Maybe you just started the podcast and you're getting caught up, and so you're giving us feedback on a really old episode, and that's totally fine.
That's totally fine.
We'd like to hear from you from wherever you are in your journey through Yikesland, the podcast, and also your journey through Yikesland, the concept.
The concept.
I'm your host, Kris Fung. I'm here with my co-host.
It's Jelani Hoon.
We're glad to see you guys. I'm going to start this podcast off with another basketball noise. No, I'm just kidding. With just a Jelani. How are you?
I am doing okay right now. Thank you so much for asking. Thank you guys for being here.
It's okay to be okay. Yeah.
I'm doing okay at this point. There was so this weekend, this past weekend, because again we record every Tuesday for you guys, and things got kind of rough. There was an outside stressor thing that happened. I'm not going to go into it or anything like that, but it ended up pushing me into like kind of a pretty bad mindset. There was kind of like this whole just feeling very down, and it's been a minute since I have had like a full on like social like anxiety, like total shutdown. So this incident.
And what do you mean by social anxiety shutdown?
So if you guys remember back in the episode of the social anxiety episode, I discussed my symptoms and the things that I deal with, where like I feel the world is like very loud, right? And like the way I deal with it, look down sometimes, or like I'll zone out, like, and kind of like put my headphones in, or but usually recently I've been kind of okay most of the time. Like sometimes I will feel kind of uncomfortable, and I'll be able to kind of power through it and kind of do what I gotta do, and the friends and stuff like that help as kind of like act as like that grounding mechanism. And actually came very close to me like actually messaging out, or it was like I don't know what to do right now because I can't ground myself. This is really bad. I almost messaged you actually too. I was like, I something's wrong. I can't ground myself right now. There was a whole thing that happened that like really just kind of broke me for like a night. I tried to like, all right, I just all right, go out, go to and be around like the friends and stuff like that. And even being in the setting where my friends are there and I'm surrounded by friends and they're all like trying to like kind of like kind of like bring me out of where I am, right? I was not able to pull myself out, and it was really something else. Like I couldn't like experience, like I don't know what the word is here. I couldn't take in what's going on around me. Like it was complete utter shutdown of like my ability to socialize in this situation. There was it I had like you know me, right? You know me, of course. Like
A
when
little.
when I see people, or when I'm greeting people, or I'm leaving, stuff like that. There's always like the big, like, grandiose, especially me. I must
Gestures.
away, and I'll give everyone's hugs and stuff like that, and I gotta go and stuff like that because I'm trying to, like, gotta keep everything strong, everything like positive, everything
Sure,
like,
yeah.
hey, everything's good. Like, I did none of that, right? That like, this night was complete utter just like shut down. When I left, I just left, right? I couldn't really, like, I had some of my closest friends there, and they're really trying to talk to me as well, and they're just like, hey man, you need help, or you need some talking to, and this and that. And I'm like, I just kind of recalled back into
Yeah.
myself and kind of just went into, like, it's all right, I'm all right, or I'm fine and stuff like that. But I'm obviously not,
Yeah, sure.
because it's very noticeable with me when I'm, like, not socializing with everybody, and I'm not, like, doing everything I normally do. It's very noticeable. But I had to run off to work. Yeah, I ended up having, like, really bad night at work too, and kind of just ended up just, like, being just kind of a really bad situation. But after that, I was able to kind of slowly trying to, like, pull myself out of, like, that situation where um I had, like, kind of like this whole social, like, anxiety meltdown, and then kind of just, like, pulled myself out a little bit, isolated myself, and surrounded myself with just a couple little things that, like, really, like, were able to pull me out of it.
Yeah.
A little bit of self-care went a long way in this situation, and after the weekend, I felt 100 times better. And leading up to today, I'm pretty good. I'm not
Okay.
feeling like those symptoms at all or anything like that. I'm actually gonna go grab some lunch with some friends later after we're done with this podcast. But yeah, it was kind of just a bad situation. I don't know. It was kind of a mixture of, like, whenever something has ever, like, gotten to me, like, where something, like, has ever just, like, attacked, like, something that I'm, like, really, like, about, like, when you're going after the core of me, right, basically. um I tend to, in the past, have, like, exploded, right? And then, like some, like, I'm not, like, a super angry person or like that, but when I've gotten to a point, it's always just like, I can't, right? And, like, stuff like arguments and stuff like that will happen. But this was, I don't think I've had this happen very often. Instead of an explosion, there was an implosion, right? Where I totally, completely shut down, you know, and it kind of just um ended up just like, I don't even know what's the point, situation. Now, I didn't go to the dark place of, like, oh, I'm gonna, like, go just end it all off. But I mean, like, it ended up being like this whole, just, I don't know what's the point of, like, doing any of this, kind of situation where I've just, like, felt kind of numb, and, like, it's not like I didn't get to, like, a point where I was on the edge of something. But I mean, I don't know how to describe it, and it ended up just, like, really just, like, messing with my head for that night. And then slowly recovering over the weekend, doing things, self-care, a lot of self-care, went a long way. And just, I think, up until, like, after, like, the weekend, getting to today, and, like, you know what, I feel a lot better, trying to move through everything. It just ended up, like, kind of, like, screwing with my head. I was like, man, that went very differently than what a lot of things have happened in the past, where it's like, oh, there's, whenever, if there's an argument or something like that, or if there's something that happens, like, I have tended to, in the past when I was younger, completely, like, argue back, I'll, like, explode out or something like that. When instead of doing that, it was everything kind of like a machine powering down, like, oh, error, like, kind of just, like, being turned
Well, I'm
off.
sorry that happened to you. And you should know, I know that you know this already, but that you can always reach out to me. But I'm glad that you made it through the situation.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, in social situations, like we talked about in the social anxiety podcast, it's a little bit different and a little bit more, like, simmery to me. But I think it's good that sometimes you just need to get yourself out of the situation.
Yeah, and
just
I almost thought for a little bit where I was like, I was almost gonna isolate myself right off the bat, like when this incident happened and everything, that's like ended up like having where there was stuff that happened, and like, man, I just feel really low and down right now. I almost isolated myself, and then I had thought to myself, you know what, don't do that. Try to like go to a place and like, you know, just be around friends for a little bit. But it ended up like not working, because as like everything progressed, like the shutdown started to happen, and things like started to happen where I just couldn't, you know, I couldn't like reach out, and I couldn't like hold myself. Like, again, when I've talked about in the social anxiety episode, where I was like, oh, I have like these different things, and like I have friends and stuff like that, and that kind of like helps me anchor myself in a situation, and kind of like be able to like deal with everything that's going on. This ended up just kind of like completely tripping me up, you know. But you know, I guess we stumble and fall, and then we learn to pick ourselves back up, and it helps us out, right? We dust ourselves off, move forward, and I'm here, and I'm doing good. Lots of stuff to plan for and everything like that. Lots of cool things coming up. So, you know, gotta make sure I get everything all back into Jelani Zen mode, and move forward with that. So
good. Well, I'm glad that you are here with us in Yikesland. I'm glad you made it through, and you can always reach out to me. But I think sometimes stuff just hits you the wrong way a little bit, in a way that was unexpected. But I actually think, you know, it may be a good thing that you're always going to feel some stuff intensely. That's maybe not necessarily, you know, as we like get older and better at tempering ourselves, and like knowing how we're about to feel, and trying to like catch yourself at it and do better. You know, the effects are smaller, but I think that maybe the implosion versus the explosion, even though it sounds a little bit, it sounds scary for you, because it's more isolating, but I think it's also kind of a good sign when you're able to not when you're able to go through a thing and then not be getting shrapnel on somebody else, where, because I do that a lot. This is a thing that I need to work on, that like if I'm somehow in a bad mood or feeling like not great, I'll like I am a person who will start a fight, then later realize, oh, you started a fight because this other unrelated thing. And so I think that is admirable in a way to me, especially as a person who's trying to work on not doing that so much. Is obviously, you know, there's a difference between don't get your shrapnel on other people and don't reach out to people. Like, do reach out to people, but you know, I'm proud of you that if your normal reaction in that situation is to like start a fight with somebody, that you're not doing that just because like I'd like to I hope one day that I will do that less too, you know. And especially it can be easy to start fights with people that you trust to never leave you, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, this person, they have my, like, whether it's your relationship or your best friend or like your parents or something like that, I think it's easy to be like, this is a safe person, and so then you accidentally lash out at a safe person who's not gonna like abandon you because you did that, but they still didn't deserve for you to fight at them because of that. And I struggle with that a lot. So I thought that was an interesting thing about what you had to say, but you can always reach out to me too.
Yeah, and I almost
start a fight with me, and
I was about to almost reach out to
unfriend you.
I was almost going to reach out to a lot of different people, and like I ended up shutting down more and more, to the point where I was like, the people who are in this place right now, where I'm surrounded by a bunch of friends and they're close friends, and none of them are helping right now. I don't know if I want to drag everybody else's. It ended up being like this whole situation where I was like, I don't want to be an inconvenience to anybody right now either, because like if they can't pull me out right now, I don't know who, like, if I'm just gonna affect and make everybody else worry. So I just ended up just like stacking it on myself more and more, and it ended up shutting me down even more and more. So I kind of just ended up just closing everything off the entire weekend, basically. Yeah.
There's a difference though between, I don't think you should ever feel like, oh, I shouldn't tell people this because I don't want them to worry about me. Like, that to me is not the definition of quote unquote getting your shrapnel in somebody. It's just if you sort of do a lash out where you like normally wouldn't have started a fight about something, but you do because whatever, you know, that to me is the definition of like allowing the harm that's happening inside of you to harm other people. But you know, don't feel like don't tell people stuff because then they'll worry about me. And I say this as a hypocrite who totally does that still, but
Well,
but I'm telling you that
yes,
it's okay.
yes, and again, I appreciate it. Well, how have you been doing?
I'm doing better since we last did this. How are you?
Yes. I remember last time you said that you had like a setback and stuff like that as well, and you were feeling.
Yeah, I'm feeling better now. Due to time and ignoring and distractions. But I am kind of using. I love the beginning of the year, as I've talked about before, because I love resolutions and fresh starts and all that stuff. And I kind of cheat and do that a couple times a year where like New Year's Eve is one, but then Chinese New Year is another one.
Mm-hmm.
And then my birthday is another one where I'm like, okay, like you're 27, gotta take stuff seriously now.
Yeah.
So I've just been thinking a lot about my past and how I got here, and then the future and where I want to be, which is a whole scary thing, but I think that's common.
Yeah.
So thinking about that stuff is like scary but exciting, because sometimes you feel like in my daily life I'll be like, oh no, my world is so closed off, whatever. And then if I like sit down and think about it, I'm like, oh no, the world is full of infinite possibilities and I can't do all of them, and I get really stressed out. And then I think I've talked about this before, but I calm myself down with multiverse theory. Have I discussed this? I think
you touched on it a long time ago. Please reiterate.
But yeah, to reiterate, I calm myself down by being like, man, there's all this stuff I want to be doing right now, and I can't do all of it because I'm just one single human being with limited capacity. And sometimes I can't get up in the morning. So, but I feel better because I'm like, in an alternate universe, there's a me doing all the other stuff that I'm not doing right now. So I just have to pick some stuff to do, fill my life with it, do the best I can, but like at least I get to know that there's infinite other me's doing all the other stuff.
Okay, yeah.
And that makes me feel better. So yeah, I to make a long story short, I'm full of hope and I'm doing better now, and I looking to get back into. I called my old therapist, as we had discussed at the beginning of the year about me doing as one of my resolutions. And so I don't know if they're still accepting new patients because they're really good therapists and everyone's trying to get in. But we'll see about that. But I thought that was a good step because it took me months to do that. And so we will see how that was doing. That was inspired by a friend of mine, who I mentioned before, who recently went back to therapy. And anytime that one of my friends makes a mental health step like that, like starting a new medication or starting CBT or DBT or just going to a therapy intake appointment, I'm always like, great, I'm going to use this person as my inspiration, because like if they can do it, so can I. Not in a competitive way, just like in a, like the tides are swelling for us people who need to take care of ourselves. So that kind of helped me to that too. So that's a good step, and I'm just trying to make other good steps.
Yeah.
Probably add some running back into my life, because that always makes me feel better, but I had taken some time off from that.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you're feeling okay, and I'm glad that you're better than how you felt last week, and that's positive. Everything's all good. Positives. So let's go on to topic of the week.
Yep.
This week is one we've touched on plenty of times, and it's a topic that I feel like needs to be fleshed out, because it's something that you dealt with very personally, and that you've dealt with for a good chunk of time, and it is kind of honing in and focusing on the aspect of eating disorder, and dealing with it, and you're in recovery from it, and everything like that, and how to kind of stay in recovery for it is what we want to kind of focus on, because I know this was a pretty big part of your depression and things that you dealt with, and we touched on it quite a few times throughout the life of this podcast so far, especially way back in the beginning when you first started your story with us here in Yikesland. So I'll let you start off. How are things right now with in recovery with?
Well, I guess I I've talked about the literal history of my eating disorder before on the podcast, and it, like you said, it's something that comes up a lot. I think it's not really a fixed topic in the sense that there's always more to say about it, and I try to talk a lot about body image stuff and body dysmorphia and body positivity and body neutrality, because it's a big part of my life, and I've been happy to see it taking up increasing amounts of space in especially like online and social media communities, because I think it's something that in the past 10 years has really exploded how much we talk about it and the way that we address those kinds of problems in ourselves. And now there's, kind of like I had talked about before with body positivity and body neutrality, there's more options for how we address it in ourselves. But it's definitely something that has shaped me for the rest of my life, even though I no longer consider myself I no longer have an eating disorder, but they sort of tell you when you go to therapy that it's kind of like alcoholism or other addictions where you're sort of just like permanently in recovery forever. And it's also, for me, I feel the sense of being in recovery because I still experience kind of some disordered impulses or thoughts with regards to eating, and lots of dysmorphic stuff when it comes to my appearance, not just my body and my face and all of that stuff, and eating and how we eat and exercising is complicated for me. So it's kind of like, since this thing happened, a whole bunch of stuff is going to be complicated for me forever. And I could look at that and be like, that sucks. Now all this stuff is ruined. Now exercise is ruined or whatever. But it's not really productive. So I kind of try to look at it like, this thing happened to me and it forced me to have a more informed viewpoint and a more fleshed out way of dealing with all of this stuff that honestly we all deal with, because we definitely live in a society that privileges certain types of bodies over others, privileges whiteness, privileges, even facial features and stuff like that. And every culture is a little bit different. I'm sure that we can both speak to some differences in norms with regards to what's considered, beautiful features in Asian cultures versus in America and stuff like that. And there's those differences with all sorts of cultures, and even within Asia there's obviously going to be different things that are considered the right way to look, but it's something that we all deal with, is this terrible conception of this is a good way to look versus this is a bad way to look. Or even just pressure to eat healthily, or and our definition of healthy is like very specific but not necessarily very informed, and pressure to work out and stuff like that, that a lot of that is very can get very intermingled with depression or anxiety or other stuff like that, where that can all feed into each other or make you feel bad about if you're a depressed person, for example, and you already have trouble getting out of bed, and then you're told that you're supposed to be doing all this exercising, but you barely took a shower today. That's just another thing that you're supposed to feel bad about yourself for. And you're like, okay, great, let me add this onto the pile of things that I feel like shit about, so it's definitely a very complex topic, and a million things to say about it. But for today, I think we're going to focus a little bit more on what recovery looks like to me at this point, and then how, like I was saying before, how the depression or the sort of all the little dysfunctional things that happen in my day can kind of fight with my struggle to be in recovery and stay in recovery. And I had told my story before, but as a brief recap, just to remind everybody, or if you're popping in on this podcast, I had an eating disorder that developed the senior year that I was in high school and continued until my freshman year, all through my freshman year of college. And then I kind of went to Hong Kong over the summer and almost did a weird, like, it sort of jolted me out of it. But I had gone to therapy for that, and was largely binging, attempts to purge, but not really successfully. So it was mostly binge eating disorder, and it was particularly miserable for me because I didn't tell anyone in college around me, and nobody noticed or was able to notice because I'm naturally a pretty small person, and I have a pretty small stomach where I get hungry really quickly but also full really quickly. So it was hard for anybody to notice because it looked like I was eating a normal amount, but to me I was eating so much that my stomach hurt and I couldn't stop eating. And if I was bloated at all, I would continue eating, sort of like almost just to hurt myself, like in a self-harm way. And it was hard at first to get, even my parents to believe me or doctors to believe me, because it's like, you don't look like you're binge eating, you're not big or whatever. And I did intentionally hide it from even my best friend in freshman year of college because I didn't want to be seen as a person with an eating disorder, and I didn't want her to have to worry about me, like, is she okay or is she binging and all of that sort of thing. So just as a brief recap, that was kind of my experience. Ever since then, I've pretty much been in recovery. But like I said, it's made it difficult to even develop an exercise regimen where, like, this is the first year that I've been able to go running, because in the past I was literally afraid to be a person who worked out in a regular way. Like I'd like start running a little bit but then kind of quit, or do yoga a little bit but then kind of quit, because I was very afraid that anything that I did in kind of a regular manner would just develop into a really strict schedule, like restrictive type of thing, where I used it to basically function as my eating disorder because I wasn't binging anymore. And so at this point in my life, like I was saying, I'm still in recovery, but a lot of the way that my eating disorder and those thoughts pop up is sort of through my depression, where I'm sure you've had days where you kind of, I call them lost days, where you kind of don't get anything done. Yeah. And so it'll just be another one of those things that I'm upset about, where I'm like, well, you should be exercising. Exercising like a normal amount is healthy. And why can't you do that? Like, you're wasting away. This is terrible. And I'll use it to be another thing to sort of feed my depression, and be like just another thing that I can kind of blame myself about. And I think even going to I'm hopefully going to Hong Kong at some point in the late summer or fall, and even thinking about going to Hong Kong, where here I'm considered a smaller person, and in Hong Kong I'm the largest shoe size that there is, and I'm also like a very tall person. Like, people are like, oh, is that a model? No, not based on my face, just based on height, yeah. Because a lot of people tend to be shorter, and so I'm considered very, very tall there. And it's definitely, I think in America there's a little bit more of a sense that the ideal person who looks this certain way is like really fit, maybe like fit and curvy, but in Hong Kong, it's the ideal person is like super crazy skinny and like not really not necessarily like strong and muscled skinny, just a very like svelte situation. So there's kind of these I don't know, have you experienced any of that, where you have these conflicting ideas where you're told, here's how to be attractive like an Asian person, here's how to be attractive like a white person, and you're like, I'm not either of those things. Yeah. I'm just me.
Yeah, it's again, I think we talked a little bit about it when we talked about like a little bit more about the Asian like backgrounds a little bit, but yeah, the ideal look for in an Asian culture is very different, you know, than what we deal with like every day here, especially, you know. Um, there it's like the skinniest thing possible is the you know the best look that you want to go with, you know. Even me, I'm like I'm don't consider myself overweight or obese, but to them, I'm, you know, to like Asian family, it's like,
Yeah,
oh,
exactly. It's
you're
family
obese
members
and
pinching the
you're, you
back of
know,
your
yeah, the elbow,
arms.
the
Yeah.
arm look and everything like that. Yeah, and it's a thing where it's the you get like this. I think it's because growing up with the looks of two different worlds is very confusing. You know, like you have the on the one side like complete and you know one look is you got to be completely skinny, kind of the slender look, you know, for you to be attractive at all or look completely normal. And if you're not, they'll completely like rail you for it completely all the time. You know, like, oh, you know, maybe she's gonna diet or maybe she eat less, but here's more rice, the kind of situation. um, and here around here, like if you're really skinny, like it becomes a thing of like, are you eating enough? Are you eating enough?
Yeah.
I'm worried about you. Or, you know, if you're like kind of like this kind of mid-average look like me, it's not really like the optimal look, because here in America the optimal look is like you want to have like, you know, I mean, you have to have that look where you want to take selfies in the mirror like with your shirt up or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm
Well, yeah,
ripped
there's a lot
and
of
I have like the
yeah, the
muscles, all
Fitspo
the
on
fit look,
Instagram
you
and stuff
know,
like that
and
that
like that's the thing,
contributes to
you
that.
know, and it becomes like this weird, just this weird thing.
There's even, I mean, with regards to the color that your skin is supposed to be, there's still to this day a lot of skin bleaching and whitening and lightening agents that are sold, you know, and this is true in India as well, but and I'm sure other places that I don't know about, but for sure in Hong Kong, like you'll go and you'll buy, first of all, sunscreen that has crazy SPF because everybody's afraid that the sun will tan them, because it theoretically makes you look poor, like a worker outside. So this has a real classist base to it. But so you'll cover up in the sun at times so that you can't possibly get tan. And then there's even like skin lighteners and stuff like that that are just for sale at every drugstore.
Yeah, and it's weird because like again, you have these two different outlooks on everything like that. Growing up here for me, and then like hearing all of the way that they look at things as well, it became kind of this clash of like ideals, and like it did like morph like in my mind like what exactly is the right way to go with, what am I going to go with, and it leads you down a road of not knowing, you know, and being very confused all the time. And I mean, I can easily relate to you, but like what exactly you probably heard, or what you know everyone is saying about you. I mean, like, yeah, when I here I'll constantly be bombarded with like the kind of like, oh, you're maybe you should go on a diet, but like here, have 10 more servings of rice. But then at the same time, when I've gone overseas and they've seen like me, they'll like, oh, you're so tall, or this and that, or this and that, or it's like, oh, you just gotta slim down a little bit, or you know, at some points, like I don't think right now, but I mean, like I've had lighter complexions here and there where it was like, oh, your skin is so white, or this and that, or your hands are so nice, because my nails grow like very fast, and so like I have like these dainty hands that like I could be a hand model if I wanted to. And I was like, your hands are so nice, and this and that. I was like, okay, thanks. And I'm just like pulling back my hand. It's like, okay, thanks. But yeah, it does. Yeah, and for you being in recovery because of like the confusion and kind of the disillusion of like what is your proper look for your body, you know, like, and doing things that like you've done to go on binge eating, things like that, like I mean, I can easily relate to that as well. Like I for me, like I love cooking, right? Or I loved cooking. And food was always kind of just like this thing where I kind of went to a lot, you know, for like, and I think that's very common for a lot of people to like eat their depression away sometimes.
Yeah, and I think it's common just even as a stress thing that a lot of people
stress eating a
eat
lot
when they're stressed or restrict when they're stressed, and maybe they're not diagnosed with an eating disorder, but they're certainly exhibiting signs of disordered eating or symptoms of, you know, thoughts that somebody with an eating disorder would have, where they think cake is bad, you know, and attributing like a value to cake or whatever it is very sad and ruins cake. But I think that's a very common thing that a lot of people do, and so a lot of this, you know, me saying I've had an eating disorder, I see so much of that in so many people and in our society all the time. And, you know, you don't go around being like, you only think that because of like disordered thinking, because society did this to you. You know, you can't spend your whole life pointing that stuff out, all because people do not want you to. But it's definitely made me very acutely aware that sort of under the surface, so many of us will exhibit symptoms like that, or, you know, use food as a stress tool or sadness tool or a breakup thing, in ways that I certainly recognize. I just happen to have in a more condensed, like fiery ball way, but I see it simmering in other people all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I think a lot of people can deal with, and a lot of people that like know kind of the feel of like turning to over binge eating for long periods of time, or snacking constantly and this and that. And it's something I have dealt with. I think I've mentioned it before. It was like, yeah, I'll constantly go through and I'll just snack constantly, or I'll eat like over and over again, because I feel like I'm full, but then like I still want to eat, because at the same time, like, it has like kind of this idea of like, I need to wreck something. I'm gonna wreck myself, so I'm just gonna eat trash.
Or sometimes it's something to do with your hands. Like if you're stressed out and you would normally be picking at your skin or something, you know, sometimes people will just start eating, and they'll be eating chips, and then they'll look down and they're
gone.
I
Oh
finished
god,
all these chips,
you know. Yeah,
know?
that's happened plenty of times.
Yeah, so I think a lot of the stuff that I recognize that I did, or that I think because of my eating disorder, I see that stuff all the time in people. And that was kind of the catalyst for me thinking about this for this episode, and what it's like to be in recovery for me right now, because I've definitely been struggling with, and I've mentioned this before, how to live in recovery with a partner or friends that have other fitness goals, because you know, it is not my business if somebody wants to lose weight in a way that they think is healthy for them, or go to the gym every day because it makes them feel good and stuff like that. Like, I know that that's none of my goddamn business, but at the same time, sometimes it's hard for me to be around specific fitness goals or weight loss goals that have inches, especially, or pounds associated with them, or somebody who is going on a specific diet, like a low carb diet, or cutting out sugar and stuff like that. It can be hard for me to be around that, just because it's a little bit too close to sort of the rules-based food behavior that I used to have. And so I kind of have to figure out how to navigate, and I still am figuring out how to navigate those situations where, like, it's that person's business. I care about that person. I want them to be happy. It's not for me to say. It's between you and your doctor whether or not X fitness goal is like attainable in a healthy way for you, and that's none of my damn business. But at the same time, it can be hard for me to be around. And it's also very hard to look at somebody and be like, hey, I need you to not talk to me about this, because I need you. So it can be hard for me to look at somebody that I care about, especially that's, you know, my best friend or my partner, and look at them and be like, hey, I need you to not talk about this, or not talk about this in this way around me, because it can be harmful to me. And I always feel like I'm stepping on their rights to express themselves fully or to share themselves with me. But at the same time, then I need to be like, if you say this stuff in front of me, it can be harmful to me. And I tend to be a little overprotective with myself about about eating disorder stuff, just because I guess I'm always, because they tell you that you're always in recovery, I'm always afraid of slipping back. And so it's probably created this other complex in me that I'm like, at any moment the eating disorder might come for me. And so, you know, maybe with time I learned to chill out a little bit about that, and I think I have, because I've been able to start running or start weightlifting and stuff like that without completely like sort of like you described when you shut down. Like sometimes I'll have those goals and then I'll just shut down, because in the moment that it feels too close to a rules-based restrictive thing, I'll be like, nope, this is unhealthy, I don't want to do it anymore, and then I'll just stop the exercise regimen. And so that can be the most difficult part of being in recovery for me at this point, is just, how do I function as a person? How do I function as a healthy person when I have an unhealthy thing in my past? And I think that it can be really hard to express to people what my needs are and where my needs end and their rights begin, if that makes sense. I think that it's that has been a thing that has been a particular challenge in my relationship or with recent friendships, where we'll make health goals together, but then I'm always like, I reserve the right to back out of this health goal immediately if it seems too dangerous to me. I think that a lot of having access though to social media, you know, there's a good community on these. People are going to laugh, but there's a lot of really good stuff out there on Tumblr, and then also on Instagram about body positivity and body neutrality. And for myself, I kind of use a blend of the two depending on what works for me in a particular situation, in order to be more okay with this body that's never going to be the exact ideal of what Americans say is the perfect look, and the exact ideal of what Asians say is the perfect look. And I think though that while you were talking to me about your experiences with that, I realized that in a way, for people like us, it might be a strength that we're exposed to these two drastically and sometimes even opposite ideals of beauty. Because like I was saying earlier, in Hong Kong, you're supposed to be super pale, and in America, they sell all these self tanners and stuff like that. And it's not necessarily like in the 90s and early 2000s when you're supposed to be like wildly like a Paris Hilton, like extreme level of tan, but there's still like some emphasis on like tanning, and you know, there's plenty of tanning salons that are open here. That's not a thing that exists in Hong Kong. And so in a lot of ways, the beauty ideals that we're fed from our two different cultures are very much at odds. And I think that in a way can be something that's a benefit, because we're both exposed to that, because it kind of just shows to you how bullshit the beauty ideals are. Because if you have two different, like, obviously that means neither of them are right, you know, and we know this. We know that neither of them are right, and that everybody looks different, and that's fine. We know this in our minds, but in practice it can be easy to forget, and you look at the mirror and you see wrinkles or a scar and you think that those are bad things. But to have this really really crystal clear example of, look at two cultures that are really strong in our own pasts and our own backgrounds, and look at how they're both trying to pull us in other, like, opposite directions about what we're supposed to look like, makes it almost easier in a way for me to be like, oh, okay, then never mind, like, fuck both of these ideals. I'm just gonna look however I'm gonna look and try to be healthy however I'm gonna be healthy, because like I can't even possibly fit both ideals at the same time. They're not the same at all. So I think in a way that might be like a secret benefit to us in terms of being mixed race and thinking about beauty ideals.
It's a good way to think about it, I think.
I'm always trying to look for the secret strength in a horrible situation.
And that's a positive thing. That's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we want to do, especially when we stay, because I think we have talked about it plenty of times where we adapt a lot and we change a lot.
Absolutely.
And we are always like, I mean, looking for that next thing that is to stay positive, to stay, us, and that's, it's a good thing. You want to be able to adapt your thinking. You want to be able to adapt, like, that maybe, at one point I thought this, one point I'm thinking this now, and hopefully, like, I can continue to adapt and continue to change, and for the better, to keep, the self-care of myself and how I feel about myself, in recovery.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
I think we're all in recovery at one point or another.
Yeah.
So
and I think that sometimes I look at the way that I deal with depression or other mental health things, and I really envy the way that I deal with my eating disorder, because it's almost this separate basket in my head where it's usually pretty clear to me how to speak to myself about it, how to avoid dangerous situations. It's definitely something that I have successfully have stayed in recovery about for a long time, and yet when it comes to depression, I'm like, I don't know, it just keeps coming back. What do I do? Like, it feels like it's bleeding all over every part of my life instead of just like the food and looking in the mirror part of my life. And it definitely feels like this. Sometimes it feels like this wild and out of control monster compared to how, like, comparatively excellent I feel like I've done at like dealing with my eating disorder, and I use that to feel bad about myself. But I think when you were saying that, I was like, okay, I need to reverse that, because that line of thinking isn't productive, and instead look to the way that I deal with my eating disorder as inspiration for, okay, like, look, you've overcome, I don't want to say overcome like I'm forever perfect, but you've really overcome all these struggles with regards to this particular aspect of your mental health. And that means that you're mentally strong, and that means that you can overcome other struggles in other areas of your life because you've done a good job at this thing. And when you were saying that, I realized, oh, Jelani's right. I need to reverse that to make it more productive and spin that in a way to, I don't want to say trick myself, because it's not like a bad trick, but in a way to adapt and make and set up my mind in a way that continues to help instead of hurt me. So that's, I think that's going to be my intention going forward. Toward at the end of this podcast, my intention going forward is to stop blaming myself about, look, you can fix this one thing, why can't you fix all this other stuff? And instead be like, look, you dealt with this part really well, and that means that you're good at this stuff and you can figure it out. And if you put the work in, you can improve other areas of your mental hellscape portmanteau as well.
Well, high five for that.
High five.
Yeah. I mean,
if that doesn't come through, we'll put a cool high five sound effect in the podcast for you guys.
Yeah, and we'll freeze frame it right there. That's it. There's this you're not watching this
yeah,
part.
And if you can also
cutting it.
Yeah, if you can also redo the part where I did the basketball noise, that would be cool too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess final thoughts on this. Like, I want to stress to everybody out there that, like, not only this is relating to your depression and everything else that everyone else deals with, like, not only just the eating disorder, just any type of aspect of it, the social anxiety, the anxiety attacks, things like that, OCD, like, there are a lot of things we all deal with, and, we stress it here every podcast. We want you to make it here every Tuesday with us, because we want you to be here with us in Yikesland. We want you guys to understand that, like, being here makes this world better, and without you, the world is less, and we don't want you not to be here. It's an example that I like to think of for me is that if you were lost in the wilderness, or if you had some sort of thing where you ended up having to try and survive alone, it starts off where everything's bleak, everything is bad, you don't know what to do. You think you're gonna die, and you almost want to because everything is so rough. Everything is gone. Everything is what you've known before, but you adapt. You survive, and then while the wilderness and everything else that you deal with and you're surviving with is difficult forever, however long you're there for, people sometimes forget to look back and say, well, look how far I've come. Look, I've survived this long, and even though it's still very difficult at this point, I think that my journey to where I am now is something that I can inspire myself to continue moving forward. And I know that's probably a very cheesy analogy or whatever. I don't metaphor. I don't know.
I think it's nice.
It's an idea of just like there's more to us than just what we think we are. I think there's more to us than that. There's the strength in all of us to continue going forward. And I think because you have gone this far so already. So why don't you bring us home, Kris?
Well, thanks for being here, guys. We appreciate you listening or watching or your mere presence in Yikesland. We would love to hear from you guys on Twitter or Facebook. You can also find us on Instagram at Yikesland_podcast or shoot us an email. Talking about my eating disorder is something that I love doing for some reason, because I guess it's like, I don't, I want everybody to feel like everything that they struggle with is fine and that they're just human and that it's totally chill to like be going through whatever you're going through. And I'm rooting for all of you and stuff. So I guess, to me, I really looked forward to this sort of like check-in about what does it look like when you're in recovery from something. Because we're all going to be at different points in our non-linear journeys with whatever mental health struggles that we're having. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share what it looks like to be in recovery from something while there's lots of other things that I'm dealing with that I'm not at all in, there's no recovery from necessarily for all these things, but that I'm not quite as far in, or that are feeling heavier for me, or that I'm struggling more with. And so I appreciate the opportunity to be able to share what that point in time looks like, because I think that our mental health scape is very complicated, and there's lots of things that feed into it, and there's a lot of like you heard Jelani and I both able to talk about struggling with these beauty ideals that we were given from different cultures and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily something where, even if you've never experienced an eating disorder, you don't know what I'm talking about when I say society told you you're supposed to look a certain way and sometimes you're going to be miserable because of that. So that's something that I like to talk about to everybody, even if they haven't experienced an eating disorder. But I really appreciate the space to kind of talk about something that's really important to me and something that I struggled hard with and went to a bunch of therapy for to deal with.
We appreciate you, Sarah.
Thank you for listening to my check-in. Remember, you are not alone, and the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is a wonderful resource that is there for you 24/7, completely confidential, and that's 1-800-273-8255. We will also link you guys to NIDA, which is very helpful for dealing with eating disorders. And I would also like to share some of my favorite body positivity and body neutrality kind of warriors on social media out there with you. So I will put those in our Instagram stories and in a comment on our Instagram as well.
Very nice. Yeah, thank you guys so much for being here, and we want to make sure you guys are here with us every week, and hopefully everything's going well with you guys out there, and know that we always want you guys reaching out to us if you want to, just like Kris said to me earlier, reach out, always available, and we'd always love to hear from you guys. So this has been your host, Jelani Hoon, along with host
Kris Fung.
Thank you guys so much for being here, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys.